Evaluate the upper and lower sums for f of x equal 3 minus cosine x from 0 to 2 pi with n equal 4 and then n equal 8, and draw rectangles to illustrate each sum. So we need to do both upper and lower. So they could ask left, right, midpoint. This one, upper and lower, mean on the interval the highest the function gets or the lowest the function gets. So we'll look at that. First we'll do upper. We're going to draw this function so we can see what's going on. So we're going to start here, and we want to go from 0 to 2 pi, and it's a cosine function whose period is 2 pi. So let's make our 4 tick marks, and that is 2 pi. So this one is pi, and this one is pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 2. Now we're going to have this reflected because of the negative and then shifted vertically up 3. So we're going to go up 1, 2, 3, a total of 4. So let's go ahead and put this on. We know at 0 the cosine is usually 1, but this negative would make it negative 1, but then we have that moved up 3. So this is going to start here at 2. And then it will be oscillating about this line. So in the next fourth it will go up to what would have been its intercept, but it's moved up 3, and then it will go to its maximum, and then in the next fourth it'll go back to the middle, and then in the last fourth it will go to its minimum. So this is the function that we're dealing with on this interval. And now we want to take that function and we want to find this area under the curve, estimating first with 4 rectangles. And so we would divide this interval into 4 pieces, and we've actually got that right now. So our interval, our rectangles are going to be going along here. 1, 2, 3, 4 of these. But first of all, we're going to do upper. So what that means is I look on this interval between 0 and pi over 2, and I find the upper value of the function on that interval, which would be right there, and that's how high I make that rectangle. And then I look on the interval from pi over 2 to pi, and I find the upper value, and that's how high I make the rectangle. And then I look on the interval from pi to 3 pi over 2, and I take the upper value on that interval. And then finally I look between 3 pi halves and 2 pi, and I take the upper value on that interval. So there's my 4 rectangles that I would sum up to evaluate this using an upper sum with n equaling 4. So we see that our width of each rectangle is pi over 2, so each one will be multiplied by pi over 2. So rather than have it on each one, I'll just write it out in front because that is the width of each rectangle. So this first rectangle's height we see is up here at 3. And then we are going to add to that, because that was the height at pi over 2, and we know the cosine of pi over 2 is 0, and then we've got that 3 on there. So now this next height of the rectangle would be cosine of pi is -1, combined with this negative will make a +1 plus 3, so that's going to be 4. And then we see the next rectangle over, this one right here, same thing, so that's a 4. And then the last rectangle we see is 3 high. And so this will approximate our area under the curve using upper sums at n equal 4. So if we add these together, we've got 14 over 2, which is 7 pi. Now I'm not going to do upper at 8, but it would be the same thing, except we would now have 8 intervals, and on each interval then you take the higher. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do lower at 8, just so we've got some different examples. And I'm going to make a new sketch. We're going to put all of this on there again, but we're going to do it at 8. So we're going to have our 1, 2, 3, fourth one is 2 pi, and this is pi. We got our pi over 2 and our 3 pi over 2, but now we're also going to make some more divisions because we want a total of 8 of these. So this would be pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4. I skipped this one right here, 5 pi over 4. Kind of squished them in there, so I didn't write that one, but they're each pi over 4 wide. Now if we go ahead and put this graph on, 2, 3, 4, and we're going ahead and draw this in again, and we know that it's going to at this next one's going to be here, then at pi it's going to be at its maximum, then at 3 pi halves it'll be back down to 3, and then at 2 pi it will be at 2. So here is our function again. And now what we want to do with this is draw our 8 rectangles. So we're going to look at this interval between 0 and pi over 4, but now we're going to do lower sum. So what is the lowest it is on this interval? And that would be right there at 0. And then the next one we were going to go with lower. My graph's not totally perfect, but we got the idea. Between pi over 2 and 3 pi fourths, the lowest value on that interval would be right there. So between 3 pi fourths and pi, so I'm looking at this next one, but I actually want the lowest, so it would be right there. And then we've got between pi and 5 pi fourths, and so looking here, the lowest would be right there. And then on the next one we would make the lowest one again, and then the lowest of those on that interval and the lowest. So that's what it would look like for lower sums with n equaling 8. We know our widths are pi over 4 each time, so we'll multiply by pi over 4. And as we look here, where this was at 0 is the lowest, and that would be cosine of 0 is 1, and 3 minus 1, we know that value is 2. And then looking here between pi fourths and pi halves, at pi fourths it would be lowest. Cosine of pi fourths is square root of 2 over 2. So this is going to be 3 minus square root 2 over 2. And you can see some symmetry if my graph was drawn reasonably. This second 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 1 and 8 are going to be the same, 2 and 7 are going to be the same, 3 and 6 are going to be the same, and 4 and 5 are going to be the same. So I can just put a 2 out in front here and figure out 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we've done 1 and 2, so now I go to 3, and the lowest it would be at pi halves. We know the cosine of pi halves is 0, so this is going to be 3. And then when we figure out this interval from 3 pi fourths to pi, the lowest it would be at 3 pi fourths. We know the cosine at 3 pi fourths is going to be negative square root 2 over 2, and the negative would combine, so this is going to be plus 3 plus square root 2 over 2. So these guys are going to cancel, and it looks like I have 11, and this reduces here. So we've got 11 pi halves.